Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Our group will discuss about adolescence. The group members are Devansa, Riski, Indrasara, Pradita, Lina, Dewi, Afifah, and Delia Lestyanada. Well, now, let's discuss about it. There are 4 submaterials about adolescence. The first is growing up. The second is venturesomeness. Third is responsibility. And the fourth is relation to life. Let's discuss one by one. The first is growing up. It means that youth leave the protective phase of childhood and become independent, which they are able to take care of themselves. Girls of this age used to be called as flappers, who are figuratively trying out their wings. It is because very often, like fledglings, both boys and girls require a gentle pass-off. Sometimes they pass off too soon and hurt themselves. The second is venturesomeness. It means that the adolescent has desire to be venturesome, which are find for new experience in life and likes roving it. Or in other words, they deliberately seek difficulties in order to overcome them. For the example, usually adolescents likes to hiking. In the camps and hiking, boys and girls seek uncomfortable and difficult conditions and then set about making themselves comfortable in them. It is done because they find for new experience in their life.
The next is about responsibility. The adolescents also love responsibility. For example, there's responsibility between family. The boy likes to be given the job of packing the luggage in the car. The girl, the responsibility of getting the younger children ready to the trip. This is the natural urge and requires expression. Relation to life. The healthy adolescent boy or girls like to do the real things in life, to do the things that matter. He would rather be a plumber's mate and do a real job that requires doing than learn about hydrostatic sitting at the desk, without understanding what practical use they are going to be. Then, a girl would rather look after the baby than learn about the child care. We should learn about things before doing them, and that is presumably why the pundits enforce this in our educational system. But it is not the natural way nor, I venture to think, the best way. The adolescent wants to do things for only, then does he appreciate the problems involved and want to learn more about them. They do these things better in primitive life, for there at puberty, the boy joined his father in making canoes, patching huts, going out fishing or hunting, and preparing weapons of war. He is serving his apprenticeship in the actual accomplishment of life. It is not surprising that anthropologists find that the adolescents of primitive communities do not suffer from the same neurologic difficulties as those of civilized life. This is not, as some assume, because they are permitted more sexual freedom, but because they are given more natural outlets for their native interests and powers and are allowed to grow up freely into a full life of responsibility in the community.
In the last century, this was recognized in the apprenticeship system, which allowed the boy to go out with the master carpenter, thatcher, or plowman to engage in the actual work of carpentry, roof mending, or ploughing, and so to learn his trade. It was the same in medicine, in which a budding young doctor of 16 learned his job by going around with the general practitioner and helping with the bloodletting and physic. In our agricultural college at the present time, young men have to do a year's work on a farm before their theoretical training at college. The great advantage of this system is that It lets the apprentice see the practical problems before he sets to work learning how to solve them. And he can, therefore, take a more intelligent interest in his theoretical work. That is also why a girl should be allowed to give expression to her natural desire to look after children. And then, when she comes up against difficulties, to learn the principles of child care. More knowledge of more things is now required in order to cope with the adult world. The period of growing up to independence takes much longer than it did in a more primitive community. And the responsibility for such education, which formerly was in the hands of the parents, is now necessarily undertaken by experts at school. But that shouldn't make us lose sight of the basic principle, namely the need and the desire of the adolescents to engage responsibility in the real pursuits of life, and then to learn how to learn through responsibility, not to learn before responsibility.